Hey guys, and welcome back for another one of our weekly updates. Hannah and I are finally sitting down at the same time. We've both been going separate directions the last couple of weeks, and a lot of times we've done our updates with our horses. And so this morning, it's really nice outside, nice cool morning, so figured we'd sit down, chat with you guys. And Meredith pointed out this morning we're 25% of the way through the competition, which is pretty tough to believe already. We have more time this year, but time is time, right? It flies by. And so we're 5 weeks in. We just finished the 5th week, and so we got three more sections to go. We got 15 more weeks to go. I'm really excited because it's still a fair bit of time, but it's taking advantage of the amount of time that we have to begin with. And so today we're going to talk about kind of what we've been doing with our horses this last week, of course, but also, what we've been feeling on our ends of this whole process. For both of us, there's been times where you felt like you couldn't get beat, and then there's other times where you're like, am I ever going to figure this out? And it's really interesting because we have two totally different horses, same goals, trying to utilize the same principles to get them there, but what we have to do to get these horses brought along is totally different. And eventually the paths will merge, and we'll eventually end up on the same track where we're doing the same obstacles, the same maneuvers, but early on in these horses' educations, we're having to do totally different stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and dive into that. And of course, as you guys, every week we're trying to bring you guys some different insights as to what's happening in the barn behind the scenes, but always encourage you guys to ask questions, whether it's down below in the comments. So this one, I check those every day, as well as on the Facebook group that we put together. That way we can give you guys some more impromptu stuff that's just happening. When I've taken a few selfie videos just as things are happening and give them to you there so you guys can check in. You don't have to wait for them to hit the back end of the website. So nonetheless, guys, let's go ahead and get into it.
All right, so let's start with just how did week 5 go? What were some of the things you guys were focused on? What were some things that you were hoping to accomplish in week 4 that maybe shaped up in week 5, and maybe some things that didn't shape up like you had thought?
I'll let you start.
Okay. Yeah, so I think week 5 has been the most frustrating week for me. Just to go ahead and put that out there, since we were talking earlier about making it a little more realistic instead of just like rainbows and butterflies all the time. My goal for this week was to have her lope more than 3 strides, which we did, but it seems like we've lost a little bit of steering and body control, and it's just a matter of putting that there so she actually can go a direction while she's going forward. So but it was definitely tough at the beginning of the week to work through that and realize that it's better if I get her out where it's a little more open and work her that way instead of in the round pen, because she was getting a little stuck up and not wanting to go forward in there, which I don't blame her. It's pretty small. So
do you think that it was frustrating because so week 4 you were in New Mexico for part of that?
Yeah. And
you're saying how you had her on that pony track, and you did get her forward.
Yeah.
And then you brought her back and went back into the round pen those first couple sessions, and it was Jesus, she won't go anywhere.
Right.
And then do you think that was part of it? It was just because you and I talked about that, and then she's I just don't have anywhere to go after she's had somewhere to go.
Yeah. And
then just having to connect those dots. Do you think that was part of it?
I think so. And I think it was also just because I felt so successful the week before, and then coming back and it was reality hit me in the face again of how far I had to go. So yeah. The highs and the lows, and that's the thing. Whether it's the Mustangs or young horses, which we're working with every day, or problem horses, they climb, they progress so fast, and then eventually you end up hitting either a plateau or a wall that feels like you go backwards. And it's when you know that's part of the process, it's easy to accept it, but it doesn't make it any easier when you're in the middle of week 5 and you're just I only have so many weeks, and it was going so well, and now it feels like it's all falling apart, and but it's just part of it. It's just I look at working out, and it's just strength, plateau, and you're you can't, then nothing's changing. The scale's not moving, nothing's changing, and then sometimes it's regression, and it's not really, though, because you've made really good progress this week. She got her horse out before I did. She had to get out. You had to get out of the arena
to get her forward. And we got some clips of, well, Meredith will probably put these in there, but tell them a little bit about when you were riding her just back here, what happened.
So like, it was just like kind of a, like, finding a place where she felt comfortable going forward, like wherever that was on the farm. And for some reason, it was like from those fields over there all the way down past these picnic tables, just about to the back field. And she could go forward and be great, but like right at the end of the picnic tables, she'd just like slam on the brakes and just kind of like do a couple little hops. And so that was kind of interesting to experience, because it was almost like riding some of these like baby race horses again, where they're so forward and then they'll just like slam on the brakes and be like, nope. And so you just gotta like push them forward again. But that was like the area where she felt comfortable moving, so we had to kind of work with that. And it was almost like we were talking about like training and not really training, where you almost just set them up where you know they're going to react a certain way, and then you just like add the cue when they're about to do whatever they were going to do anyway. And they kind of start to associate that cue with that mindset, and it's like training without training almost.
Yeah. I think it's so key. Like Hannah and I were talking about this week, is like when you're riding in the arena, like I've spent the first couple of rides on mine, like first 12 rides or so, 15 rides in the arena, because mine's been so reactive that I was like, I want to have some control when we go out to the world where we can't control things, that we can actually dial it back down. But it's like going ahead and asking those yes questions. So like when you're riding around out here, it's like, I think you mentioned this yesterday to me, was like, oh, when I felt like she was going to lope, so I just went ahead and put my leg there, and it was just enough encouragement for her to lope, but she was already thinking about loping anyway, and you inadvertently put a physical cue to a mental idea, and you do that enough times, whereas like that's what we're trying to do in the arena, is like when you pick up on the reins, you're like, okay, everything's set up, so if I do this, I'm going to get the right answer to the equation, versus out here, you know, it's the horses have more to look at. They're definitely going to be more forward, and the horses are like having fun. Not that they don't have fun in the arena, but they're able to have some fun, and we're like, oh, okay, we're putting this piece in here and that piece in there, and it's not like drill all the time. So really solid.
All right, so next thing I want to go over is like, what are some expectations that you had going into this that if you could tell yourself 5 weeks ago, like throw those out the window, like that's not realistic, or that's not the way it's going to go? Like, what are some things that have surprised you about this process so far with these two horses?
Do you want to start with that one?
I'm going to have to think about that one.
Me too. I think maybe like part of it is just how easy it is to forget that they know absolutely nothing, you know, of like about domestication. So like one thing, I was talking to a friend like probably in the second week, and I was telling her, I was like, yeah, she just learned how to eat feed, and she was like, that never even occurred to me that would be a thing she'd have to learn. And like there's been a couple little things like that with me where I just kind of like, so I'm so used to being around domesticated horses that I just assume, oh hey, you know, this is a brush. And then she's like, what is, you know, like what is this thing and why are you touching me with it, you know? So it's just kind of like, I guess that extra awareness that you need in order to work with a wild horse is something that I think I could have had a better handle on, because like the Mustangs I worked with in the past have already been gentled, even though they still have some of those little pieces that are missing. Like there's still, like somebody else has already put in the majority of that work. So.
Yeah, and like I know one of the pieces early on with Chug was just getting her muzzle touched.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's probably still a little bit work in progress too, but it was like her no touch zone, basically, and it was just like pretty, I know it was frustrating for you, because it's just like, I gotta be able to touch his muzzle, like, you know, I want to be able to take the halter off and put the halter on, or put a bridle on, and you go to reach for it and she'd just be like, nope.
Yeah.
But then you start to get that curiosity to where she starts to reach out for you, and then you kind of sometimes want to go reach. I think we were talking about that, and you're just like, she's like, hi, what are you doing? And you're like, here, and she's like, oh, no. And just those things you take for granted, because you don't know, you know, catching them early on. You don't know what it's going to take, 2 minutes, 20 minutes, or 2 hours. And yeah, I think, this is my third time doing it, doing these competitions, and I've helped people with their Mustangs in between. And so some of the things that like kind of been unexpected, like I think that one of the biggest things for my particular with Gigi is this is a positive thing. Like, she's progressing way faster and way better than I ever imagined. Like, I mean, the last 2 horses I've developed in, like, within the Mustang Makeover constraints, like, they've turned out to be really good horses. And so I think that this horse is just, one, she's a really nice horse, but also I know a lot more than I did before, and I feel like it's coming together. So I wouldn't have ever expected her to be where she is now before, but I had goals, like within the first 2 weeks, I wanted to have those first rides on her, and I didn't put the first ride on her until like the end of the 3rd week. And so it was like I missed my goal in that sense, but I couldn't, I could have put a first ride on her in the 2nd week, but it might have been a bit of a rodeo. And so it's like you have to stay flexible with the plan. And I expected to have those first rides in the first couple of weeks, because I felt like 2 weeks was a pretty adequate time constraint. Because in my first one, I had the first ride, I had 2 rides in the first week, or 3 rides in the first week. The second one, I rode like day 7, and I had quite a few rides in the 2nd week. And this horse, she's been way more challenging just to get settled with things. But if you would have, so I would have expected to have those rides in the first 2 weeks, but I would never have expected her to be this far along at the end of the first month.
And maybe that's just because you've ended up taking the time that you needed, instead of like if you had started her, and gotten that first ride on her in 2 weeks.
I'm a chicken shit, basically.
Well, no, but you wouldn't be as far along riding as you would have been, because it probably would have set you back more by doing it sooner, if that makes sense. Yeah,
we shared that little video, just a quick video of her earlier this week, and it was just her kind of trotting around and cantering around. It's the first piece that we've been sharing with you guys exclusively, and it was the first clip that we've shared with the public in the last 4 weeks about how she's doing. And someone that is very much into the horsemanship community come on and she says, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And that's pretty much the definition of like how that horse is going around, is like, it's just, we know, all of us know kind of what to do for the most part. And it's just that timing and making sure you're taking the time to put it in there. And yeah, I'm very much focused on the mindset of that horse. And so it's like getting her really comfortable, getting her really relaxed, and not going past that, and then just chipping away at her. I've had so many sessions that are just 20-30 minutes, lately, because the first couple weeks it was an hour here, another hour, another 2 hours, and then so it takes the time it takes, but you gotta put the time in that you've got to have. So I think that's been, with the horse side of it, I think that's been the biggest thing. And then I think on my end, aside from the horses, has been trying to help Hannah as much as I can. Like, we're both die by the sword of independence, right? We've talked about this earlier this week, and it's like, I try to be respectful of like where she's at, of like learning, because you can't, if you're at where you're at mentally, and and I tell her time and time again, like, if you need help, come get me, and normally as soon as I say that, within about 2 or 3 hours, she comes and finds me, right? But if I don't say that, like within a 24-hour time span, I don't see Hannah. Like, she's out working horses. And so I understand that, but on my end, it's been like, I get the independence part because I'm the same way, but it's been the expectation, like, it's been a whole challenge in itself. In addition to the makeover, has been trying to help you kind of come along with her, and it's a 2 totally different situations. So she'll hear me say time and time again, don't worry about what my horse is doing, like, because they're 2 totally different animals. Like, what I'm doing with her will not work right now from where Chug's at. Oh yeah. And so that's been really fun, and a challenge, just to kind of sort through all the little pieces that goes into, you're watching where the horse is at, but I'm watching where you're at, trying to draw the conclusions there, and then still making sure it's like, I'm a firm believer in free advice is what you pay for it. So it's like, that's why I always leave it up to her, like, hey, ask me, because then I know, like, she's in a receptive mindset to say, okay, now I need some help. But never short on opinions in my department, but I just try to be careful when I voice them. So Meredith shakes her head. Yeah. But I mean, you're making super good progress with her. It's just, it's a tough, there's going to be tough weeks. I mean, I can tell you all the tough weeks of the last ones that I've had, and it's just like, and Meredith's been there and watched it, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like, are we ever going to get through this? But if the weather today is anything like some horizons about how our horses will ride today, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. So.
All right, so the next question is, so is there anything that you guys are doing outside of the barn to kind of keep you guys progressing, like as a decent human, that you feel like is feeding into how you're able to like approach your horses and like show up for them each day?
I think I would say honestly just to like leave the horse at the barn mentally and like not take the problems with me when I leave, and have that time to just kind of like not think about it and like go do something else, focus on something else, because then I'll come back fresher the next day if I'm not like worried about whatever it is that's going on at the barn. So I'll like, go for a run or go rock climbing or do whatever, just like find something that'll get my mind completely off of what I'm doing here and like have that time to rest.
I'm kind of laughing inside a little bit, and now maybe verbally, because I kind of work the opposite. Like I've talked about the social hour and her like need for social engagement versus like I have that too, but I can go for an extended period of time without it. And so it's been fun because the barn's been a little busier here lately, which is fun for all of us. But things I've been doing outside the barn, honestly, like I've practically been living here the last week or two. There's a lot going on, but I think one of the biggest things that I've been doing that's helped me with that horse is I've been doing a lot of teaching, whether that's been creating video content. Laradre is sitting back here behind the camera. You guys will probably meet him at some point. We'll do a video. But he's been doing like a working student position with us, and then helping Hannah and then just creating a lot of educational content. We taught at the expo. We got another expo coming up in 75 days or so, and that really helps me stay in a really good mental mindset, because I'm breaking all this stuff down. All the things that I do with my horses and like within my own life, I'm now trying to put it into simpler, like very simple, easy to understand and implement, I won't call it a program, but a process to where I can explain things and Hannah goes, okay, that makes sense. And I can say, well, it's simple, but it doesn't make it easy, and then it's out going, putting the time in to go do it. And so I think the amount of work that I've been putting in to create and help other people keep developing and to help other people keep progressing with their horses and in their own lives has helped me, because all that stuff is staying fresh. Because I have been getting up at between 3 and 3:30 in the mornings for the last week or two, and getting to the barn here super early and not really leaving here until 7:30 or 8:30 at night. I'm not working out like I should. The only reason I'm eating decently is because Meredith brings me food in the mornings, and I wouldn't say it's a very sustainable long-term deal, because there's something called adrenal fatigue, which I found out when I did Raina's makeover, and I crashed really, really hard after that makeover finished up, because my body just I didn't get sick, but I was done. And so I know that's a part, and that's gonna be something I'm gonna try to avoid in this, but I feel like I'm in a season where I've got to really keep kind of pushing here. My horse is doing really well. It's not like I'm doing this just because of the makeover. Like, there's a lot going on within the business, and so I can't do this for the rest of the competition. We got another 100 days or so left. Like, I don't know that I'd make it physically as far as being in sound health, but I'm in a bit of a season right now where that's what I'm doing, and I think just helping other people is keeping enough of my purpose and the why in front of me, and then making sure that the process and the way I go through things isn't in the front of my mind. So that's I'm running on fuel of that, and probably should run more on fuel of like vegetables and protein. So that's kind of where I'm at right now in week number 5.
More macros.
More macros, that's it. Yeah. Oh man.
All right, so last question I have is, so what's the plan for week 6, and then also for this second quarter, right? Because now we're in the kind of the second quarter of the competition. So what are some plans going into week 6, and then what are some bigger things you guys want to be accomplishing over the next couple of weeks?
So going into week 6, I'm really focused on, I've got pretty good body control at my horse at the walk and the trot. And we just had this last week, we just had our first few rides outside. And so my plan for her is to get her outside of the arena a little bit more, because she's as sensitive as she is, she's pretty lazy. She's learning. Like I always tell people, like, these horses learn that something's not going to chase and eat them, they quit running from it. And so now she's to the point where I've felt comfortable getting her outside the arena, and I can get her out here into some of these open fields and stretch her out and get her forward and work on the steering at the canter a bit more, because in the arena, like, I have a little bit of steering, but there's not enough room to kind of get her getting into a bigger circle or going around or really getting her straight, because she's still a little sometimes worrisome if we throw a saddle over the rail, and so that'll push her off the rail. Well, now the arena is only 75 foot wide, and she's being mentally pushed to the other side. And so getting them outside, there's stuff out here, of course, these picnic tables might be a little worrisome to them, or their tractor or whatever, but there's a lot of room with nothing around but trees. And so we can get them outside, and that's my main focus, is to get her outside, get her forward, and keep improving the steering. Really focus on the body control on her as well. I mean, mine first, but then I need body control, steering, leg yielding, stopping, turning, being able to move the shoulders, being able to move the hips, those kinds of things. And I think this week 6, just getting her outside and letting her see stuff. I mean, I'm not going to introduce her yet to maybe our trail obstacles inside, and then working on a few of the concepts, which we'll probably talk about in another video, as far as starting to implement ideas for the freestyle. Now that she's a little more receptive to information, we got to start chipping away. And really, for me, I want to sit down and start designing that freestyle very specifically, because we got to get props built and make sure that we don't build them too heavy. Everybody's going to laugh because our booth for the expo was extremely heavy. So we got to build props, make sure we build them in a way that they can fit in the trailer and we can take the horses to the makeover. And there's a lot of logistics like that we're going to have to take into consideration, because at the end of the day, we got to get the horses exposed to those props, and we have to have enough time to practice, to get the music in time. So I think on the office side of things, on the paperwork side of things, I'm thinking about designing that freestyle, what props. I've already got the song picked, and now it's just a matter of figuring out how I'm going to design the entire routine. And then for the horses, just get them out, get them a little more broke. For the next quarter, which puts us at the end of this next quarter, we're halfway through. Like, that's basic math, but it's going to fly by. I mean, that puts us in the middle of August, and we've got a lot going on between now and the middle of August, and it's going to happen like that. And so it means we got to stay on top of it. And I think that by the end of the second quarter, I want to be definitely making sure that we're going over bridges, we're going over poles. I've really tried to simplify the makeover this year for myself. I don't really remember exactly, like, I have journals and stuff from when I did Raina's, but I felt like I was more focused on like the general foundation. And now, like, when I'm riding Gigi around, every time I'm riding her, I'm thinking about what I have to do in that competition, because what I have to do in that competition, if I can do it, my horse is super well broke. But when I'm like loping my horse and I'm starting to practice those circles, I'm thinking about the compulsory pattern in the finals. When I'm working on shoulder control and leg yielding, I'm thinking about eventually doing the 2-tracking between the cones. Because honestly, a lot of the trail courses, the Mustang maneuvers class, which is your flat class, the compulsory, like, a lot of that has been fairly consistent and almost exactly the same from year to year. And so as I'm doing my flat work, I'm going ahead and making sure that that's in the front of my mind for those maneuvers. Like, this is what she needs to know for the competition, and if she knows those things and she can do those things out here in the wild, basically outside, then somebody that buys her that wants to trail ride, she's gonna be safe. She's gonna have body control, and she's been exposed to a lot of stuff. And so I've really tried to streamline what she needs to know to keep it very simple for the horse. Halfway through, definitely want to be knocking out the trail obstacles pretty solid. I don't care that it's super finessed in the sense that I don't even really want her to look like she should look at the competition halfway through, because then I might be pushing too hard. I think that's one thing. It's kind of like bringing along young horses. If you get them, if it's almost as if she matures too early in that, then you got to maintain that all the way through. Like, I just want her to kind of get a little bit better each day, and that way halfway through we still have a lot of room to keep improving, but she's doing everything with a sound mind.
I was thinking about the freestyle planning that I've done, and I've already talked to a couple friends, and I have my song, and half of my routine actually worked out. I've got to work on like actually doing some of the things that are going to involve that with Chug, but we've got that worked out. And then like you were talking about like what do we have planned for this like second quarter, and I'm talked to a friend in Bowling Green. She has a trail obstacle course and a creek, and so we're going to go at some point towards the end of this month and go play around there, but hopefully do just a couple little things around the farm here just to like prepare ourselves for that full-blown obstacle course that's like, it's pretty legit, so I'll have to keep you updated on that, but that'll be good. And then, yeah, like preparing for the freestyle, and then also just getting more body control with her, because we have forward now. We just, or at least for the most part, we have forward. Like, there's still some improvement there, but.
Talk about getting the forward, though. There's Katie in the group. She has a Mustang, and we're going to answer this in the Q&A too, but Chug was not forward.
No.
Right. So what was your approach as far as in like some of the things that we worked on to kind of get her going, particularly on the ground, but also under saddle? Under saddle, obviously, you just get her outside.
Right.
But on the ground, like, what'd you have to do to kind of start getting her a little more forward?
On the ground, it was mostly just like, just reward the smallest try. And like once you kind of get that smallest try, you can start getting bigger tries, because then they realize, okay, there is a right answer to this. And it's not just, you know, like me like flagging her around the round pen for like 50 minutes, and just like rewarding those really small tries, but then also like keeping her in the forward until she relaxes, because we've talked a lot about that, where you just kind of go until they relax. And like part of her thing is like, in order for like, she's always relaxed, but she just prefers to be stopped. So like making her realize that like trotting can be just as comfortable as standing. It's not necessarily like a relaxation or like a tension thing as much as it is like, this can be just as good as this thing. You know, like keeping her in that until she realizes it. So
it's powerful, because like, I mean, she absolutely nailed that, and it's reaffirming for me to hear that, because we've spent quite a bit of time talking about that, and we have training horses that need that same approach. And it's pretty simple as why it works, because if you know, you're not round pinning the horse just to like round pin it. Like a lazy horse, you don't want to get them tired going forward, because then they don't want to go forward, you know. But if they go until they relax, I mean, what happens is they get hit with dopamine. So it's the best, like one of the best forms of positive reinforcement that they can get, because then they get that feel-good drug running through their system, and they relax into it, and then they're more and more forward doing, if you do what Hannah said to do, which is reward the smallest try. And so that's really cool. Well, we're gonna have to leave the freestyle conversation maybe to another video, because I'm kind of excited to hear what you have in mind for Chug-a-Lug or Chug-a-licious.
Chug-a-licious. That's the new nickname.
All right, let's throw in a bonus question. So, and maybe we'll do this at the end of halfway too. So if you could give yourself a message, like let's flash forward, right? We're done with the makeover. It's gone as best as it can possibly go. Like, what's the...
This gives me anxiety.
I actually really like this.
I didn't even hear the question, because I was already starting to get so anxious about the idea of being done.
No, I love this. I love this question.
About that.
I love this question.
Okay, what was the actual question?
Was if you could give yourself a message, leave yourself a message right now for after the competition, right? It's gone as well as it can possibly go. What's something that you want to kind of leave to yourself, like a friendly reminder or something?
Should I? Okay. I'm just gonna say, like, because Meredith and I have already talked about this a little bit, but just like a beach trip. Like, we're just gonna go to the beach and relax for like however long we need.
Oh man.
But that's kind of like that, and just like know it. Like if it did go as well as it could, like knowing that I tried as well as I could, and she did as good, like, and she ended up in a good home, like, just like the peace that comes from that. Because most of my anxiety is like, really, can I actually make a horse from a completely unbroke Mustang? Like, I'm still, you know, probably at the stage you were with your Sweet Caroline. Like I don't even know if I can do it. So like part of me is still like anxious to know if I can do that or not. So like just the peace that's gonna come with like once she's like finished and has a good home is gonna be probably more rewarding than the beach, to be honest. But that's also like in the back of my mind. It's just like go and like kind of reward yourself for the hard work. So
celebrate the wins.
Yes.
Celebrate the wins.
Colton will celebrate his win for like 45 seconds and then he's on to the next thing.
Yep. That's good too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I'd say leading off of that is you got it.
Well,
you absolutely got it. Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, like, even with where you're at now, like, you're in a good spot. Like, a really good spot. With as much time as we've got left and the things that you've got working that are working well, are working really well, you know, and you've got a really good minded horse, which is a large part of the battle. Like you get something that's a knucklehead, now your life is so much more difficult to get it. So you've got a good minded horse, which is a very marketable horse. So like people that are like if there's anybody that's interested in her, and people will be interested in her, like as she progresses, like you can't beat the mind that the horse has, you know? So you got like, there's so many chips already in your corner, and then it's like time's on your side. You know, it's just a matter of like, you gotta control the things you can control, which is time being put in, you know, and making sure you stay fresh like you're doing a lot better than me. So, gosh, a message to myself now. I probably could use that message right now. Is there any way I can like
I'll edit that
have like a future me come back and tell me, because that would be real handy. I honestly don't know, because there's so much left to learn like in this process that I can't get, like, I'm a big vision thinker. Like obviously I'm very detail oriented, and I'm like very methodical in how I approach things, which is why it works for me. But I can't get caught up like as soon as Meredith's like when it's done, and I instantly get anxious, like not because I don't want it to be over, but it's like there's so much that I've got to do now before then that I can't get caught, like my brain like can't operate on thinking about when this thing's done. Like you guys know this, and it's like my head is like, win this competition, earn your ticket to Road to the Horse. That's as far as I get. Like Meredith says, if it can go as good as it can go, that's as good as it can go right now. I have the high selling horse again. That's what I want. You know, I want to have, ideally I'd like to go in all the preliminary classes. I'd like to go top 3 in all the preliminaries. There's a high point and a reserve point winner for overall points in the preliminary classes. I'd like to win that, and I want to win the overall deal. And so that's where my head is. Like I basically want to go first in all the categories, and it's just because I'm willing to put in the work to do it. I'm going to do the best I can do. And one of the things that like we say is like just be the best you that you can be, and like do the best you can do. When you know better, you do better. And so like trying to think past that, and then instead of give myself a message now, just like honestly I think it gives me more anxiety than it does reassurance. Like I think it'd be cool as a video clip, but I think from where I'm at right now, I got to stick to my principles. I got to stick to my game plan. And if anything, each competition, like I think one of the things that I'm doing now that I haven't done before, which would be a message to my previous self of other makeovers, is like, you know, is quality over quantity. Because I'm so busy, I haven't had as much time with this particular horse, but I've been very focused on the quality that I'm doing with her, and it's carrying over. And so the value in shorter sessions but more concentrated sessions has been like, that's what I would tell my previous self, because in those past makeovers I've put hundreds and thousands of hours into those horses, and I'll do the same with this one, but they're going to be, the hours are way more concentrated, way more methodical, and I think that's serving because it keeps me fresh, it keeps my horse fresh, and so yeah, I mean, and honestly, if I were to sustain the pace I'm on now by the end of the makeover, I'd probably be telling myself to do what Hannah's doing, which is like have some time away from it a little bit. But hindsight's 20/20, so I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing because I think it's gonna work. All right, and something comes up, we'll duck and dodge and dive, and we'll figure it out.